On January 23, 2019, emerging superstar Victor Oladipo, in his second season with the Indiana Pacers, had already led the team to an impressive 24-11 record and was among one of the top seeds in the top-heavy Eastern Conference. After a hard-fought 7-game series against LeBron James's Cleveland Cavaliers in the previous season, the Pacers with Oladipo were just beginning to come into their own until one franchise-altering moment that changed the entire trajectory of the still just 26-year-old Oladipo.
Ibaka there for the rebound. Link to the floor, pass Siakam.
And thus, everything changed. In 2013, the Orlando Magic drafted Victor Oladipo as the second overall pick in the NBA draft, as anticipated the hopeful start of their new era with their shiny new piece of the pie after superstar Dwight Howard left the team a year earlier. After Victor Oladipo took the nation by storm in the 2012-13 collegiate season, his draft stock quickly rose to a top pick in the draft. And it can't be understated just how special Oladipo was during the 2012 campaign. This all came after Oladipo was projected just months earlier to be, at best, a late-round draft choice had it not been for his incredible final season at Indiana. A final season so incredible that he began drawing comparisons to one of the top players in the NBA at the time and a cinch NBA Hall of Famer, Dwayne Wade. This is exactly the reason why Orlando took Oladipo off the draft board almost instantly, and in hindsight, you can seriously argue he was the best player to come out of that draft, after, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But after the Orlando Magic, foolishly I might add, opted to not pay Victor Oladipo the rookie max extension that would keep the fan favorite in Orlando, the Oklahoma City Thunder decided to bring in help for their superstar Russell Westbrook by trading for Oladipo and pair him with Westbrook in the backcourt. But similar to how things ended for Oladipo in Orlando, the Thunder decided to not keep Oladipo around long term and chose to go a different direction. And that different direction was sending Oladipo back to where it all started in Indiana by sending him to become the star of the Indiana Pacers in exchange for superstar forward Paul George. A move that looked heavily in favor of the OKC Thunder at the time, considering they just acquired a proven superstar commodity in Paul George, while the Pacers picked up the still emerging Oladipo. But boy, would that sentiment change quickly as the season wore on. Not because Paul George wasn't as advertised in OKC, but because Oladipo was taking over in Indy and doing things that nobody, I repeat, nobody saw coming. The Indiana Pacers featuring Victor Oladipo were projected to win all of 30 games with a whopping 3% chance to make it to the NBA playoffs, completely disregarding what a young player as talented as Oladipo could do for a team in need of a tough, hard-nosed competitor like he was. And as I hinted earlier in this video, the Pacers indeed made the playoffs, and they didn't just make the playoffs. They took the defending Eastern Conference champions down to the wire in a Game 7 of the first round, including a Game 5 wipeout in favor of Oladipo's team. Though they came up short, it was Oladipo and the Pacers who made headlines as that team in the league that exceeded everyone's expectations. It started with their star, Victor Oladipo. After being traded twice already in his young career, Oladipo made the NBA All-Star team for the first time in his career in his first season with the Pacers. He led the Pacers to the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference after so-called experts gave the Pacers an over-under of just 30 wins before the season started. Oladipo won the NBA's Most Improved Player award, and he firmly entered the MVP conversation for the following season. Yes, the MVP conversation. For the same guy who 2 teams previously gave up on and almost all of us counted out as a member of the Indiana Pacers. I mean, I guess it makes perfect sense. Anytime you increase your scoring average from 16 to 23, lead the NBA in steals, improve your field goal percentage, three-point percentage, blocks, and almost triple in several advanced statistical categories like box plus minus, PER, and win shares, even if they really don't want to, they are going to have to give you your due respect. In a time like that, seeing Oladipo skyrocket to superstardom gave Indy fans more hope than even when they had Paul George leading the way just a season earlier. After winning 48 games and making noise in the playoffs, what was there not to like about Indy? The team was slowly becoming the next it team in the NBA. And to start the next season, that's precisely what was taking place right before our very eyes. The Pacers stormed out to a fast start and had the Eastern Conference in their grips for a large chunk of the season to start. And had it not been for that utterly gruesome injury Oladipo suffered against the Raptors that January day 4 years ago, there's no telling what the Pacers would have accomplished that season with Oladipo's rise to stardom and one of the more consistent supporting casts alongside him. The Pacers, to their credit, still squeezed out another 48-win season, which is highly impressive on its own, and even made the playoffs. But I still sit back and think, man, we could have seen an epic run from those Pacers with Oladipo. Nonetheless, Pacers fans were just hopeful that their superstar would return to full form, and given the severity of the injury, Oladipo wouldn't return until past the start of the season in the following year, when Oladipo made his regular season debut almost exactly a year later on January 29th, 2020. And again, despite Oladipo missing a significant chunk of the season, the Pacers remained ultra competitive and continued winning games in Oladipo's absence. Of course, the season was stuck short due to the pandemic, and then the Pacers eventually lost in the first round of the NBA bubble playoffs to the Miami Heat. After the long hiatus and the time off, paired with Oladipo's injuries and rust, the Pacers weren't exactly competitive in the playoffs in the bubble. And for Oladipo, rust showed, and it really impacted the way he performed in that series. But a lot of fans just chalked it up to the long hiatus and the rust Oladipo had from not playing for a long period. But come next season, injuries took a noticeable toll on Oladipo. He didn't look nearly as explosive or high-octane as we were used to seeing. His numbers took a step back too, from his breakout season just 3 seasons earlier. And in a move that was hard for fans and the Indy front office, the Pacers opted to pull the plug on the Oladipo era in Indiana and traded him to the lowly Houston Rockets, who lost James Harden in that same multi-team deal that sent Oladipo to Houston. But he didn't play longer than a couple of months before again being traded, this time to the Miami Heat, who would allow Oladipo to play for a contending franchise. Just weeks, no days, into his Heat tenure, the injury bug struck Oladipo again. And again, it was another lower body injury that would inevitably rob Oladipo of his once bouncy athleticism and ability to play an above-the-rim game. This injury would keep Oladipo sidelined for much of the following season before Oladipo was finally able to return for a few games to end the season a year ago. And fast forward a year later to the present day. And the still just 30-year-old Oladipo, who instead would have been just starting to hit the very peak of his prime, his best days have suddenly become just a faint, distant memory that only diehard fans of his will remember. What happened against the Bucks in the first round of these playoffs was gut-wrenching, just terrible to watch as a fan of the game. While I wasn't expecting Oladipo to return to the same player he was in 2018 when he won several individual awards and stunned the NBA world, just seeing him healthy and on the court would have been a huge asset for Miami in these playoffs. And seeing that Miami made the NBA Finals this year, Oladipo could have played a huge role in their run. I guess you can just say, what if, like you can with dozens of other ex-superstars who were robbed by injury and never got the opportunity to hit their fullest potential. We are all rooting for Oladipo to come back healthy and strong, as he has another lengthy road to recovery ahead of him. Could this have been the last of Victor Oladipo in the NBA?